Hello guys, welcome back. Some of you might notice the setup's a little bit different this time. As you can see, I've moved house quite unexpectedly. So last Thursday I decided I wanted to move house. Thursday night I signed for somewhere and Saturday I moved in. So I'm not going to show you that half of the room just yet because it's still a tip. But this bit is quite nice here. As you can see, I've got my most important bit of furniture set up, the bookcase, and all my beautiful books, but the rest is a work in progress, and I'll show you it all once it's done. It's going to be good, I promise. But that's not why you're here. So what am I here for? Basically, this is going to be my December wrap-up and my January to be read. Before we get into it, I will make a slight confession. I didn't manage to read all the books I'd set myself, but there is a reason. I'd forgotten about the book club I was part of, and that I would have to read a book for that. Kind of part of the point. So I had to sub that in exchange for the S.J. Watson that I'd set aside to read. But the book I subbed in for my book club is this, Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. And actually, this is one I've been wanting to read for years. My dad's always raved about it, and anyone that I know that's read it has absolutely loved it. And it's the kind of book I normally enjoy, so I kind of convinced the book club this was the one to do because I wanted to read it. So that went well for me. Overall, I loved it. It's in the Cemetery of Forgotten Books series. It's the first one. Originally published in Spanish, set in Barcelona. And it's a bit of a mystery, thrillery, drama-y, bit of everything really it covers. But I absolutely loved it. I thought the characterisation was really good. The story was good. I didn't get any of the twists at all, which is rare. And overall, I just thought it was very well put together. It's quite long, but it doesn't feel it. And I think it was really lives up to all the hype I'd heard about it. So I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10. So the second book is really quite different. It's this, The 100 by Cass Morgan. It's the book that the TV series is based on. And I enjoyed the TV series, and that's why I came to read this. I managed to get a proof copy from one of my colleagues. I overall really enjoyed this. It's quite different to the TV series, but not in a bad way. There are characters in the series that aren't in the book, and the characters in the book that aren't in the series, and makes it quite distinct and different. And I would definitely advise, if you like the series, read the book, or vice versa. It's a different kind of complementary experience. I thought the characters in this were well formed, sometimes better than they were in the TV series, and I think the plot in this was quite different. My one concern is that the TV series, because it's a TV series, covers a lot more. So this one book was basically like the first 2 episodes of the TV series, and the book did feel a bit too short. It's not, it's 275 pages, but it felt like a prequel, and then there was going to be another half of the book afterwards. So that's my one disappointment with this, is that it wasn't longer, and it did just feel a bit of an introduction, not a full book. But still, really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 overall. Next up, again, very different. It's A Short History of China by Gordon Kerr. So as I've mentioned before, I did a history degree, so this is right up my street, and I was a little bit disappointed. Obviously, a short history, you expect it to be brief, but actually it was a lot briefer than expected, and I felt that there was quite a lot of detail missing, and surprisingly, for something so brief, quite a lot of repetition, to the point that even it felt like the same sentence was being used over and over again, and it did disappoint me on that front. But, on the other hand, it did serve its purpose, that it's helped me find kind of areas of Chinese history I want to explore more. So there's the Three Kingdoms period, which I know a bit about already, and the more modern period, which I've not really studied, but obviously is a big part of life. And it's helped me as a doorway into those, and realise that I do want to study those a little bit more. But the book, the writing itself, wasn't great. I've given it a 6 out of 10. So next up is The Guest Cat, Takashi Harada. As I said, I'd actually already read this before I did my to be read, but it was in December, so it counts. It's a beautiful little book, as you can see. I'm just going to stand here and stroke the cover for a while, because look at it. It's Japanese translation, and I did find that the writing style was lovely. Took a little bit of getting into, as most translated literature does, but the style once you get into it is beautiful. My one downside is that it was quite predictable, and exactly what you expect to happen happens. And the other thing is that the dust jacket and the blurb are actually quite misleading. They make it out to be about the relationship between the couple who kind of adopt the cat, whereas in fact their relationship is barely touched on. The wife is the most underdeveloped character. So as a book, it's beautiful. As the book explained on the blurb, it's a bit of a disappointment because that's not what it is. Nonetheless, I enjoyed it overall, and I've given this a 7 out of 10. Lastly, I've already done a big video just on this, is The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. Definitely give it a read. If you are all interested in historically set literature, if you like a good mystery story, if you like stories that comment on social and cultural issues like gender and race and religion, go for it, because it is really gripping, really enjoyable, and overall the characters and the plot are really well done, even if there are bits which are predictable or slightly underdeveloped. And my biggest niggle was the fact that there just wasn't a resolution to all the storylines. She's doing a sequel, so there is that gap for that. But if you enjoy any kind of historically set drama, this is the one to go for you. I gave this a 7 out of 10, but you can check out my full review to get a little bit more detail about it. Well, quite a lot more detail. I talked for quite a while. So that brings me on to my January to be read. I've got quite a few set aside this month. The first one is, completely unsurprisingly, the book I didn't read last month. So I am still looking forward to reading it. It's S.J. Watson's Second Son, and it's a psychological thriller along the same lines as Gone Girl and Before I Go to Sleep, S.J. Watson's previous book. So I'm looking forward to getting around to read this, and I promise you I will read it this month. So the second book this month is a really unique one. It's this, The Bees by Lillian Paul. It's literally from the perspective of a worker bee, which is something of an untapped goldmine in literary perspective. It's not a book concept I've ever heard of before, and it's one that's got a lot of hype about it. It's getting a big push out, it's come out in paperback, and it's one that people that I know have read it have just absolutely raved about, and not stopped talking about it in some cases, but it's really got me excited to read this, so I hope it lives up to it. The other thing I want to show you is just how beautiful the etching is on the actual hardcover of the book. I almost don't want the dust jacket on it because that is just so beautiful, and that's always a good sign when you start reading the hardback. Thirdly is another hardback. I'm on a bit of a roll with hardbacks this month. Station 11, Emily St. John Mandel. This is a book that's got a lot of momentum behind it. It's on so many best of 2014 lists. It's been pushed as one of the flagship titles by Picador, the division of Pan Macmillan, which is the publisher. And it's the Waterstones Book of the Month for January in the paperback form. It's a post-apocalyptic tale, which at the minute kind of makes me groan a little bit because everything's a bit post-apocalyptic. But it takes a very unique perspective, and it follows a travelling Shakespearean theatre company. Not the usual perspective to see in a post-apocalyptic tale, but it's set 20 years after the apocalypse, and it flips between what happened at the apocalypse and the current day, and it's supposedly about the importance of art and community and how you go on living in this kind of post-apocalyptic situation. So it's what I'm really looking forward to. It's got a lot of hype about it. It sounds quite an interesting concept. Again, it's a beautiful cover, and that's another one I'm really looking forward to reading. So my fourth book for January is this, Atul Gawande's Being Mortal, and without a doubt, this is the book I'm most excited about reading this month. In fact, I've already started it. This is the first one I went for. I've been eyeing it up for months now, and it's quite a unique style of book. It's non-fiction, and essentially it's about dying and old age and what it means to be mortal, and how we as people deal with the prospect of death. And it's a very, very sombre book. It really makes you think about the situation, what you'd want for your parents, what you'd want for yourself, what you'd want your children to do when you're old. And it's made me sad. I've had to stop reading it a few times because it's really got me down. But it's such a thought-provoking book, and it's such an important book that I've been wanting to read it for a while, and now I've started. I'm absolutely loving it, and I think this is one that more people should read. So that makes 4 books for January so far. I think I can fit at least another one in. So I've stolen the concept that many YouTubers have had of a to-be-read jar. So this is a collection of 25 books that I've wanted to read for a while, or have sat on my shelf and not got round to. And I want to try and read all of these by the end of the year. I'm going to try and pull out 1 or 2 a month, depending on how big my other reading list is. And without further ado, I'll pull out January's, and we'll go from there to see what can be next. Right, so the first is a book from the Sabriel series by Garth Nix. So give me a sec, I'll just grab that. It's actually just behind me. So this is a series I read when I was a child originally, and they are without a doubt one of my favourite series of children's books. They're kind of aimed at teen. We were lucky enough to have Garth Nix come to the shop quite recently, so find a copy. I've put all 4 books in this series in to the TBR jar, and I'm going to read the next one in the series each time I pull one out. This is the first one, and I've got to say I'm really excited about reading this series again. This will be the first book series I've ever read more than once, and I couldn't think of a better choice for it. So that can go on top of my pile. How adventurous are we feeling? Go on, let's do another one. One more. So I'll pick another book out. So the other book I want to read this month is... interesting. The History of the World in 100 Objects by Neil McGregor. I don't actually own this book yet, but it's one I've been eyeing up for a while. It's a book by Neil McGregor, who's a radio presenter and historian, and basically it covers 100 objects that have had significant roles in history and goes and tells a story around them. So I like that kind of episodic historical book where it's little snippets of information rather than one big long narrative that's 400 pages long. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I think that's a good one to pull out. It quite nicely rounds off my collection of books for January, which is looking substantial now. So here we are. I've set myself a big target here. But I'm optimistic I can read them all. They're all ones I'm looking forward to reading. And yeah, I'll look forward to getting back to you in a few weeks and letting you know what I thought about these. If you've read any of these or any of the books I discussed from December, please let me know what you thought down below. I'm always interested to see if other people have got the same opinions as me. Quite often not, but that's a good thing. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and share. And I'll be back in a couple of days with my 2014 year-end awards, which, I'll be honest, I'm finding it hard to pick what to win for my categories. But I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys think about my choices for that, and I'll see you with that in a few days.